Catoosa, Oklahoma, a town known for its giant blue whale, a beacon of roadside Americana. But beneath the veneer of kitsch and charm, darkness festers. The town, like many others, has its share of secrets. As the sun sets and the shadows lengthen, the streets take on a different character. The once inviting roads become pathways to the unknown, and the cheerful facade of the town gives way to an eerie stillness. It's as if the town itself holds its breath, waiting for nightfall to reveal its true nature. Just beyond the city limits, shrouded by whispering trees and the chill of forgotten tragedies, lies Crybaby Bridge. This bridge, hidden away in the dense forest, is a place of legend and lore. The trees seem to close in around it, their branches forming a canopy that blocks out the light. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, and the only sound is the occasional rustle of the wind through the trees. Locals whisper tales of the bridge. They speak of strange occurrences and unexplained phenomena. Some say they've heard the cries of a baby echoing through the night, while others claim to have seen ghostly apparitions on the bridge. These stories have been passed down through generations, each one adding to the mystique of Crybaby Bridge. The locals, though wary, are drawn to the bridge, unable to resist its dark allure. Stories told around flickering campfires, voices hushed, eyes wide with fear. The tales of Crybaby Bridge are a staple of local folklore, shared on dark nights when the firelight casts long shadows and the imagination runs wild. Each storyteller adds their own twist, their own embellishments, making the stories even more chilling. The crackling of the fire and the rustling of the leaves create a perfect backdrop for these eerie tales, making them all the more believable. They say it's a place where the veil between our world and the next wears thin, where the boundary between the living and the dead is blurred. The mist that hangs over the forest adds to the sense of otherworldliness, making it easy to believe that anything could happen here. The forest is a place of mystery where the past and present seem to coexist, and where the line between reality and legend is often indistinguishable. The bridge stands as a silent witness to the tragedies that have occurred there, its structure worn and weathered by time. The fog that envelops it seems to hold the memories of those who have suffered, their pain and sorrow etched into the very fabric of the place. It's a haunting reminder of the past, a place where the echoes of history can still be heard, and where the spirits of the lost may still roam, where the echoes of anguish linger in the air. The bridge stands as a silent witness to the tragedies that have occurred there, its structure worn and weathered by time. The fog that envelops it seems to hold the memories of those who have suffered, their pain and sorrow etched into the very fabric of the place. It's a haunting reminder of the past, a place where the echoes of history can still be heard and where the spirits of the lost may still roam. The legend of Crybaby Bridge is chilling. A young mother, driven to despair, took her infant child to the bridge one moonless night. Her sobs mingled with the baby's cries, a symphony of sorrow echoing in the stillness, then silence. The mother was found the next morning, her eyes vacant, her cries replaced with a chilling silence. The child was never found. They say her spirit, unable to find peace, haunts the bridge, her cries carried on the wind. David, a young journalist drawn to the macabre, had come to Catoosa seeking the truth behind the legend. The town was small, almost forgotten by time, but it held a story that had captured his imagination. The legend of the old iron bridge was whispered among the locals, a tale of tragedy and mystery that had persisted through generations. David had read about it in an old newspaper clipping, a brief mention that hinted at something more sinister lurking in the shadows of this rural town. Armed with a notebook, a flashlight, and a healthy dose of skepticism, he stood at the foot of the bridge. The structure loomed before him, its iron framework rusted and worn by years of neglect. He could almost hear the whispers of the past, stories of lost souls and unexplained disappearances. The locals avoided this place after dark, but David was determined to uncover the truth. He flipped open his notebook, jotting down his initial observations, the cold air biting at his fingers. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and decaying leaves, a pungent aroma that spoke of secrets hidden beneath the surface. The fog rolled in, shrouding the forest in an eerie mist that seemed to muffle the sounds of the night. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig made David's heart race. He knew he was not alone. The forest was alive with the presence of unseen watchers. He took a deep breath, steadying himself as he prepared to cross the bridge. The old iron bridge groaned under the weight of his footsteps, each creak echoing like a mournful sigh. The sound seemed to carry through the night, a haunting melody that sent chills down his spine. David paused in the middle of the bridge, looking down at the dark waters below. He could almost see the faces of those who had vanished, their eyes pleading for answers. He knew that the bridge held the key to the mystery, and he was determined to unlock its secrets, no matter the cost. As David ventured further onto the bridge, he began to hear it. A faint cry, high-pitched and mournful, carried on the wind. He stopped, listening intently, his heart pounding against his ribs. The cry came again, closer this time, seeming to come from the creek below. He shone his flashlight into the darkness, but the beam was swallowed by an impenetrable blackness. The air grew heavy, pressing down on him like a physical weight. An overwhelming sense of sadness washed over him, threatening to drag him under. He thought of the young mother, her face etched with despair, her heart shattered. He could almost feel her presence now, cold and mournful, standing just beyond the reach of his flashlight beam. The cries grew louder, filled with an unbearable agony. The legend of Crybaby Bridge was coming to life before his eyes. Suddenly a glint of metal caught his eye. He swung his flashlight towards it, his heart pounding. There, snagged on a rusted nail protruding from the bridge's railing, was a small silver locket. He reached for it, his fingers trembling. As soon as his skin touched the cold metal, the cries reached a fever pitch, morphing into a blood-curdling scream. He recoiled, dropping the locket back onto the bridge. The cold metal seemed to burn his skin, a stark contrast to the chill in the air. His breath came in ragged gasps, visible in the frosty night. The bridge, old and worn, creaked under his weight, adding to the eerie atmosphere that surrounded him. The scream was deafening, echoing all around him, seemingly coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was a sound that pierced through the night, sending shivers down his spine. The mist swirled around him, thickening with each passing second, as if the very air was alive and reacting to the scream. He felt a presence, unseen but palpable, watching him from the shadows. Then, as quickly as it began, it stopped. The silence that followed was almost more terrifying than the scream itself. It was as if the world had been put on pause, leaving him in a void of sound. He strained his ears, trying to catch any hint of movement, but there was nothing. Just the oppressive silence and the weight of the darkness pressing in on him. Hesitantly, David picked up the locket once more. His fingers trembled as they closed around the cold metal. He could feel the weight of the past in his hand, a tangible connection to a time long gone. The locket seemed to pulse with a life of its own, drawing him in, compelling him to open it. It fell open in his hand, revealing a faded photograph of a young woman cradling a baby in her arms. The image was old, the edges worn and the colors faded, but the emotions it evoked were as strong as ever. He felt a pang of recognition, a connection to the faces staring back at him from the past. He stared at it, his blood turning to ice. The realization hit him like a tidal wave, overwhelming and inescapable. The woman in the photograph was someone he knew, someone he had lost. The baby in her arms, so innocent and fragile, was a part of his own history, a piece of his own soul. The woman in the picture was staring back. Her eyes, though faded and blurred by time, seemed to hold a message, a plea for help. He felt a chill run down his spine as he realized that this was no ordinary photograph. It was a link to the past, a bridge between the living and the dead, and it was calling out to him, demanding to be heard. The image in the locket began to flicker, the woman's face contorting in a silent scream. David cried out, throwing the locket as far as he could, his mind rebelling against what his eyes were showing him. He stumbled back, his foot catching on a loose plank. He lost his balance, falling over the edge of the bridge, his own screams swallowed by the darkness. The locket, now lying open on the bridge, glinted faintly in the moonlight. The woman in the picture smiled serenely down at the baby in her arms. Beneath the picture, an inscription read, "To my dearest Mary, may you find peace at last." And from the creek below, a single chilling cry echoed in the night. The legend of Crybaby Bridge warns, never look back or you might see her ghostly figure forever searching for her lost child.